We've all been asked, how are you feeling today? Sometimes we know how to answer, and sometimes we don't. Being able to sort out our feelings from our emotions can be a challenge. While emotions are related to physical conditions, feelings are sparked by emotions. Feelings are the product of your brain's perception of things. So when we suppress or unleash our emotions, those actions can have a tremendous impact on our physical health and life. Our guest today has spent her career helping people identify and cope with their emotions and feelings. Hi, and welcome to Coffee with Claire. As you loyal fans know, we bring you business leaders and entrepreneurs who like to give back and have fun. My guest today is Melissa Caldwell Engle. Melissa is co-founder and clinical director at Healing Springs Ranch. A licensed professional counselor and registered art therapist, Melissa has over 25 years' experience treating trauma and addictions. Today, she will share with us her knowledge and experience in helping her patients understand and cope with the spectrum of emotions. Please join me in welcoming Melissa Caldwell Engle.
Hello.
Woo-hoo, you're here.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Melissa, I am so thrilled to have you here. Coffee with Claire is such a loyal fan of Healing Springs.
Wonderful.
We really embrace all the hard work that you guys are doing. It's so important and necessary out in our world today. And, you know, because we've had John Edmondson, we've had Rachel Graham, and now we get to have you.
Thank you. Yes. We appreciate your support.
Absolutely. Well, I know that you probably didn't wake up in the middle of the night and say, hey, I'm going to work at Healing Springs. So I'm sure that there's a little bit of a story and a process that got you to the point that you're here now. So we'd love to hear a little bit about how you got here, your journey, and why this is so important to you.
Absolutely. Well, I actually started out in school being a fine arts major, and was forced to take a extra class, and so I chose to take psychology because my friends talked me into it, and I actually it wasn't something I chose. Didn't have an interest. But while I was taking that class, I heard about something called art therapy, and it was being able to utilize the art, your skills in art, not even your skills, but using the art medium to help people be able to heal and recover from psychological issues. So that was very interesting to me. And so I moved forward with that, and I've worked with a psychiatrist named Dr. Colin Ross. I worked with him for about 25 years. And our specialty was focusing on adult survivors of childhood trauma. And so I've had a lot of experience. And when you delve into the world of adult survivors of trauma, you're going to see every psychiatric diagnosis, every addiction under the sun, whether it's substances or processes like gambling or shopping or food or work, any of the addictive processes. So I've seen every combination of mental health and addiction. And so over the years, working with him and having a private practice, one thing that was always difficult for me was when I would work with people that had substance abuse issues, they would go to substance abuse facilities, like residential facilities, and they would address the substance, the behavior, but they never really addressed what was causing the behavior, the underlying purpose of the behavior. And I know from my experience, it's the pain and trauma. And the more and more that this field has grown, they're recognizing that substance use or substance abuse doesn't happen by accident. There's a reason behind that. There's a purpose for people taking things that they know they shouldn't be taking or doing things they know they shouldn't be doing. And the purpose is to manage pain. So if we don't deal with the underlying pain, then people may stop drinking, but then they start smoking 2 packs of cigarettes or they start gambling. Yes, it's actually called addiction substitution. And so when I was asked if I wanted to be part of a residential treatment facility, I thought, oh my gosh, if I can bring all of my experience with the mental health world and my experience understanding trauma and bridge that with the addiction world and have a really integrative comprehensive treatment. So when people come in, we're not just addressing this behavior.
Yeah.
We're looking at why do you need that behavior and how do we heal those roots so the behavior just doesn't pop up or transform into another behavior.
Yeah, so I would imagine that process is a little bit longer just because you're digging a little bit deeper.
Yes, exactly.
Or okay.
Exactly.
So when people come to you, are they expecting that quick fix that they've heard on TV or on the radio, and then you kind of have to walk them through the process? Is that kind of how
sometimes
it goes,
but most people that find us now after reading our website or talking to our intake director, they know that what we're about, and a lot of people choose us specifically for this.
Okay.
Because they're very
sense.
tired of, they'll say, you know, I'll do fine for 2 years and then it comes back. Or then I've switched over to sex or pornography or whatever it is. And so they're wanting something. So a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, finally, someplace that understands I'm not just doing this because I would choose to do this. I'm doing this because I'm desperate.
And it's not because I'm a bad person.
Exactly, or character flaw.
Yeah, because a lot of people that don't understand what's going on, it's real easy for them to put those labels on their family and friends and just say, well, you know, that's their problem. And it is, but there's a solution.
Yes.
You just have to dig into it and find it for them.
Yes.
And I bet it feels like a golden nugget when you finally do find that space.
Right.
They're like, oh, that's why, you know? I mean, it's a revelation for them. So, you know, long time ago, I remember seeing these charts that had different faces on them. And they're like, okay, you take a look at that face, Claire, and point at the one that most closely matched the way I was feeling right then. So I'm sure that we have come a little bit further than those little pictures that I saw back in kindergarten. So tell us a little bit about what we've come to have now in your process.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the feeling chart.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think everybody's seen that. It's the little faces.
I didn't know it had a call.
Yes,
it had a title.
Yes.
Okay.
It says, "How are you feeling today?"
Yeah.
And it just has the little faces on there. We've gotten better. Interestingly enough, the field of psychiatry, when I started about 3 decades ago, since I was working with people that have trauma, there was a little bit more awareness of, okay, there's some painful feelings here. There's a lot of emotions here.
Okay.
The field in large kind of started taking more of a behavioral approach, but about 2 decades, about 20 years ago, they started talking about trauma-informed. So they started recognizing, okay, wait a minute, maybe there's a connection between mental health symptoms and diagnoses and some unresolved trauma, because we're seeing a lot of people that need inpatient support, inpatient health, chronic depression, chronic anxiety, struggling with wanting to hurt themselves, thoughts of suicidal ideations, really deep psychological issues. More and more clinicians were saying, well, there's a correlation with a lot of traumatic experiences, which kind of seems like a no-brainer, but it takes us a while sometimes to see correlations, right?
Right.
So the field started adopting and understanding there is trauma. So now they have what's called trauma-informed treatment. So we're starting to have a little bit more emphasis on looking at the underlying pain that drives this. But it's a bit of a movement. It's a bit of a paradigm shift.
Okay.
We tend to just focus on the behavior. It's even called behavioral health. We just focus on the behavior. We aren't trained to look at what's underneath that behavior, what's driving that behavior. And we want to say, well, it's just genetic. Well, and this is a whole nother show, but there's not.
We'll have you back.
The research isn't there for a specific gene for these psychiatric diagnoses, including addictions. So the research doesn't support that. So what we're seeing more and more is that it's a desperate attempt to manage tremendous emotional pain. And when they talk about painkillers, that's really what all of these addictive patterns and even the mental health symptoms are communicating to us, is that this person is trying to manage and kill pain, and the pain happens to be emotional pain.
And it just never really goes away.
Unless you dig in, and unless you look at it. But when you keep going to your psychiatrist or counselor, and if they don't understand the underlying trauma affects this, they're just going to focus on the behavior. And they're just going to say, stop this behavior, this is how you stop it. And that's when I see people that have stopped a behavior, but something else has popped up. Or they stop a behavior and their anxiety goes up, or they get more depressed. So you have to be able to look at and kind of retrain your brain to understand there's a function and a purpose behind these symptoms and behaviors, all of them.
Yeah. And you've spoken about feelings and emotions, and I'd love for you to help us understand what is the difference between those two things.
You know, most of us use the words interchangeably.
Yeah.
We'll just say how you feeling or talk about
Right.
your emotions. But if you really want to get specific, an emotion is a physiological response. So if someone kicks me in the shin, just walks up to me and kicks me, or if I see a dog running at me snarling, you have a physiological response. And that physiological response, if it's extreme enough, it's called the fight or flight response.
Okay.
Where we have a reaction that we go into, we don't even think, our body almost does it for us. We'll take off running from that dog or fighting for our life. So emotions are more of a physiological state.
Okay.
Our feelings are how we connect with those emotions, how we're connecting to that physiological state, and our mindset about how we kind of like our filter, how we perceive that emotion to be. And that's going to be based on past life experiences, how you saw your parents express their emotions. So your feelings, people often, like I said, use the words interchangeably, but our feelings are shaped by our past experiences, our perceptions, and our role modeling. So all those things shape how we think we feel about that physiological response.
And so when we are having these feelings and emotions, I've also heard a term used with them as healthy and unhealthy.
Yes.
So what's the, I mean, it sounds so simple to say, what's the difference? But I really don't, where's that line?
Most people don't know that.
Yeah.
So you're asking a question that, I do these lectures with psychiatrists and social workers and counselors, and we weren't even taught this in school. I was always told in graduate school, all feelings are okay. So we're just kind of given this blanket statement that all feelings are okay. And over the years, I've learned, just like thoughts, you can't always control what thought pops in your mind, but we do start to learn how we can kind of control what we do with those thoughts, if we ruminate on them, if we feed them. And we also know that there are some thoughts that are healthier to entertain than others. So the same exact thing is true for feelings. I don't believe you can always control what feeling or emotion gets triggered in you. But you can start to learn what you do with those feelings, and there are healthier feelings to entertain than others. So what I have to teach clients who have become so disconnected from their emotions because they're so overwhelming that we just suppress them and shut them down. And if you have years and years and years of suppression and just not thinking about it, I'll go shopping over here, or I'll go over here and have a nice meal. If you just keep suppressing stuff and you don't deal with it, it builds, because feelings are actually energy and it stays inside. And so while your head may be saying, I'm fine, it's not bothering me, your body will have a very different experience. There's a book written by one of the leaders in the industry, and his name is Bessel van der Kolk, and he wrote a book called The Body Keeps the Score. And in that, it's a perfect title, because whatever your head can be in total denial that there's anything going on down here. And so you have all these feelings, you have all these emotions, and then you're going to start having physical problems. If you hold enough in and you don't want to feel it or think about it and you try to suppress it, you hold enough stuff in, you could develop things like irritable bowel, you could have high blood pressure, you can have migraines, backaches, stomach aches, you can have a lot of physical symptoms tied into suppressed emotion.
Wow.
And for a lot of people that come to me, when we start healing their trauma and their pain, a lot of their physical symptoms that they have struggled with for years start to go away.
Wow.
So I'm not saying don't go to your doctor.
Right.
I'm not saying don't check out any physical issues that you may have. But quite often when people have had every kind of lab work done, every kind of testing, they cannot find the origin or the causes. When we start healing their pain, their migraines go away. Their IBS clears up. I've seen it over and over and over for 30 years. It happens.
That is fascinating.
It really is.
And we don't even know that we're doing that to ourselves. And so do you coach people onto learning ways to recognize when they're feeling that kind of stuff?
Yes.
And then how to redirect things?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
So is there an example you could give us to kind of describe that?
Okay, yes. So let me clarify too what I would call, if I had to label, healthy feelings versus unhealthy, which I do. So healthy feelings are going to be like anger, sadness, hurt, happy, vulnerable. Guilt, I even say, is a healthy feeling, because guilt is a reminder to us, okay, I don't want to do that again. So guilt's not a bad thing. Now, shame is too much guilt.
Okay.
So the healthy feelings, I would say sadness is healthy. Too much sadness would be depression.
Okay.
Anger is healthy. Too much anger would be rage.
Okay.
Vulnerability is healthy.
Okay.
Too much vulnerability is helplessness.
Fear.
Right. Fear is healthy. Too much fear is terror, and even paranoia. Those are extremes.
Right.
So when we take our emotions to an extreme, it can start to become an unhealthy dynamic.
Okay.
Because you're going to accidentally trigger your fight or flight response. And when you trigger your fight or flight response, now, if it's an emergency, it's okay to trigger it.
Right.
If a bear's chasing us, we want to run. I mean, we want to be able to do these things.
Right.
But if you're someone who over responds, makes mountains out of molehills, drama queen or king, crisis junkie, if you're someone who kind of fuels yourself by overreacting to stuff you don't need to, like there's no bear, but you're overreacting. So if you overreact to these things, you're going to trigger your fight or flight response. When that gets triggered, your physiology kicks in, your digestive system temporarily turns off, your immune system temporarily turns off.
Wow.
Your reproductive system temporarily turns off, and your prefrontal cortex, which is the part that can think things through, it temporarily turns off. In an emergency, we don't need all those things.
Sure.
But if you overreact to a non-emergency situation, you're shutting off your digestive, your immune, your reproductive, and the part of your brain that can think straight.
Yeah.
So you're going to have poor impulse control. You're going to have GI issues. You're going to get sick easier because your immune system's constantly being turned off and on, off and on. And you're going to struggle with reproductive issues. I mean, how many of us have known someone that was so desperate to have a baby and tried and tried and tried, and they could not get pregnant?
Yeah.
And then as soon as they adopt,
they get pregnant.
Exactly. Exactly. So stress, which is what heightened emotion can create, when you have too much stress, you're going to trigger your fight or flight response.
Wow.
So the name of the game is, how do I keep my feelings in check, not let them get too big, not let them get too shut down, because you don't want to go the opposite side where you shut everything down and you're just flat and disconnected and numb. Our feelings are important, but they need to be in a healthy place. Too much is going to cause a lot of reactive issues, which could be seen in some psychiatric diagnoses. Too shut down, you're going to see a lot of medical symptoms. And usually what most people do is they do both. They'll have a feeling, they stuff it down. They have a feeling, they stuff it. They have a feeling, they stuff it. Stuff, stuff, stuff. And then they blow up on this other end. So they have psychological or emotional, depression, anxiety, and physical, where they could have medical issues as well. Because it tears up our bodies. It tears up our minds. It tears up our digestive system, our immune system, our reproductive system. It's not good for us mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. So how we manage our emotions and not tripping off our fight or flight response is critical in a balanced life and wellness.
Wow. So do you give them a chart? I mean, how do they know?
Well, we educate, just like I do have a chart. And we go through this chart and we talk about what's healthy, what's not healthy.
Yeah.
And then we talk about strategies for when we feel ourselves starting to get too worked up.
That's great.
Or feel ourselves shutting down too much. We have to look at strategies. How do we bring ourselves back into that middle place where it's healthy and you're not triggering your fight or flight response?
Yeah.
Because you can turn your fight or flight response off if it starts to get activated and you catch it in the beginning. So an example would be driving down the street. I mean, I know nobody here in Texas has road rage, but other places, other places where they have road rage. So you're driving down the street and someone cuts you off, and you start thinking, I cannot believe it. Why would they do that?
Yeah.
And you just feel it moving. You start getting your emotions worked up. You start going from anger to rage, and if you start getting it too stoked, you're going to trigger your fight or flight response. All this adrenaline starts coursing through your body, all these stress hormones, your digestive, immune, reproductive, and the part of your mind that can think straight turns off. So the way to counter that is you have to be actively aware of your body, and when you feel yourself getting worked up, you have to counter it. And one way to do it would be to say things like, okay, hang on. Maybe someone's sick. Take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Maybe someone's dying. Maybe someone's in the hospital. Maybe someone's having a baby. Maybe someone ate a bad burrito. Who knows what the reasons are? But we've all done that. We've all cut other people off. So you have to monitor yourself, what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Take deep breaths, because deep, slow breaths. I mean, I know your grandma always says, take deep breaths, honey. It actually works.
It does.
It actually starts to shut down that sympathetic response of your fight or flight response. It will actually kind of calm things down, and your brain's going, oh, okay, I thought she was all worked up. She's okay. She's breathing okay. We're good. So it short circuits that over response in the fight or flight.
So is that kind of like that old thing that you always hear, just count to 10?
Yes.
Because I can see where, you're not getting into that fight or flight thing, and you're engaging the part of your brain that can think clearly.
You're so smart.
Oh.
That's exactly what you do.
Okay.
When you start getting more emotional, you want to engage this.
I gotcha. Okay.
Now, you don't want to engage it with, that son of a gun cut me off. You don't want to engage it with that.
Yeah.
You want to have other thoughts that bring that emotion down, like empathy.
Yeah.
Maybe that person's going through something.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to evoke another emotion to try to counterbalance that anger that's getting boiled up. You want to go to compassion. You want to find something that will bring that anger down and balance it.
Oh, that is so cool. I now that I think about it, I saw an ambulance the other day, and it was slowing down traffic, and I was running a little bit late, as I have a tendency to do sometimes. Don't like that.
Not
but
today, though.
Not today. I was on
You're
time.
right
yes.
on it.
And when that ambulance stopped the traffic, I remember I did do that. I was like, oh, dang it, I am late. And then I thought, oh, someone's having a worse day than me.
So you did it. That's exactly what
you
did.
You did it. I didn't know what I was doing.
You counterbalanced it to keep yourself in check, and we have to do that.
That
we
is
have to do
so
that.
Cool.
And that's taught to us. We don't realize as children how that's taught to us with our parents or our caregivers. So if something happens in a little kid, in a small child's world, if an ice cream cone falls off, it's traumatic, right?
Yeah.
So we have to coach our children and say things like, it's okay. I know that hurt your feelings. I know you're sad. It's okay to be sad. I mean, you want them to feel, but you also want to let them know that they're okay, and you want to introduce other thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that ice cream fell off. We still have half of one left. Let's enjoy this one. Find ways to help children manage that emotion. But if you say, I cannot believe you did that. That is so stupid. What a waste of money. All that does is teach children to amp up their emotions instead of learning how to keep them in a place where they still are in control.
Right. Well, gosh, I definitely need to have you come back because we are out of time.
Wow, time flies.
I know. But before we sign off, Melissa, tell everyone how they can get a hold of you.
Okay, so we are at Healing Springs Ranch, which is located in Tioga, Texas. And our phone number is 844-443-2577. And if anybody'd like to know more about our program or more about workshops that we offer, that's the number to call.
Well, Melissa, thank you so much again for joining us today. And thanks to our listeners and our viewers. Please be sure and like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We'll see you next time on Coffee with Claire. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Coffee with Claire. To learn more about today's guests, visit their website or find them on Facebook. To learn more about me, Claire Billingsley, follow me on LinkedIn or visit my website at coffeewithclaire.tv. And to hear more episodes of Coffee with Claire, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast and social media platforms.